evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Moving on through our 2023 season, we are going to be picking up where we left off, reviewing our calendar thus far. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
And back once again, fan favorite, Mama Beth, a.k.a. Mama Cheeseburger, a.k.a. Beth. Welcome.
Hello.
The last episode was so much fun. It was crazy well received. We've been trying a lot of things with this podcast, between some of the ideas, the ongoing series with the owners, interviews, things like that. And people just like it when we jump in, talk about the experiences. So we are going to pick up where we left off. And where did we leave off, Mark?
I believe the last thing we discussed, and if I'm wrong, was Godzilla Palooza 2, Godzilla Palooza Raids Again.
Godzilla Palooza. So we'll timestamp this a little bit as we are about to roll into right around Labor Day 2023. I actually stepped out of the trailer today, and there was somebody in front of the giant Godzilla with an ironing board. And I'm like, what is going on over here? For those people who don't know, we had a giant installed Godzilla, which still lives in the front of our lot.
Godzilla lives!
Godzilla lives. So I wandered on over. Here it is. Some neighbors are taking part in a photo contest that the local news is holding. And supposedly one of the anchors is a big Godzilla fan. There has to be an iron involved. So they pretty much came out and created a production shot, which I don't know if it gets any more well-produced than having a gigantic Big G hanging out behind. But the Big G, he still delivers for sure and draws. But that Tuesday after Godzilla was Naked Gun, if I'm not mistaken. Airplane.
You're mistaken.
Well, you know what? I kind of am blending those two together because they're from the same ilk, if you will, and had a similar vibe on the lot. I love whenever we do comedies at the Mahoning, which we've been known and have become known off of the, grindhouse horror programming. But when we can hit it on the nose and you get that infectious laughter that takes over from row one all the way to the back, it's something really special. And that was certainly the case on that night. Newbie Tuesday. I mean, Mama Beth, right? Every single Tuesday, it seems like the percentage of new people coming to test us out during the week is super high.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot on Sundays too. Sundays are a big draw for a lot of newbies as well.
Yeah. And I think doing those more on the nose titles on Tuesday was certainly Harry's angle, to try to appeal to more than just the quote unquote exhumed crowd. And it was a little bit harder to promote, definitely harder to promote to our fan base. And we've been trying all different angles to get the word out to the audience, especially when something is considered, niche, which most of our stuff at this point is. But that was a home run. Fantastic night. And that led right into the madness of VHS-Fest. And boy, oh boy, it's for me, like we used to say, Zombie Fest is the beginning of the season, that Memorial Day kick. And it definitely is in some senses. But I say like the summer truly starts when we get to VHS-Fest, because it seems like right after that, it's just like boom, boom, boom. The big events start coming in. And to date, nothing bigger than VHS-Fest. It's been a 2-day sellout for the last 4 years, 4 of 7 years, which is crazy to think.
And VHS-Fest was greeted by an insane amount of rain this year.
Oh, please.
I was looking through my camera roll today, and all the cameras, all the photos are time stamped, and I was trying to see, okay, what was the date on that? July 7th. What's my first picture on July 7th? It is a lot that looks like a lake. And we're about to welcome a sold out crowd. We're about to welcome, what do we have? 61 vendors. We had an incredible number of vendors, and we're just, battening down the hatches. So it was quite a way to start the weekend.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. And I was opening up the stand, trying to get the stand ready, and the stand was flooding. And I actually had to take my shoes and socks off so I could get back stock off the back wall. So that way we had it, because we weren't sure, was the rain going to stop? Was the water going to recede? So here I am. And I think Mark was in the back with me at one point, and I was handing him like boxes of ketchup and mayonnaise and all this other stuff so that we could get it out front. So that way we had, it was accessible to us. It really was something else.
You were like ankle deep in water in the back far reaches of the storage area behind the snack.
I had a wading pool. I have a wading pool in the back.
Yeah, it gets insane on the lot. When the water comes down, it does run eventually, but it's a situation where we were totally nailed, like religious type of rain. And it was right as we were checking in vendors. I was in the front lot, literally in like a pond, and down comes, about minutes from checking in vendors, and boom, the lightning comes down and strikes the back lot, literally. And I'm like, should I move? As I'm in a gigantic puddle of water.
And it literally did hit the ground and leave a burn mark.
And I was pushing water in the stand because we have the drainage in the floor. So I had pulled up the drainage covers, and I was trying to push the water into the drainage hole. And I was standing right by that door when it hit, and I jumped. Max was refilling the refrigerators, and he goes, "What was that?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." I was literally shaking in the stand. It was crazy.
Humongous line of vendors waiting to get in, with all their stuff prepped and ready to go. And we've gotten nailed before on VHS-Fest in big ways. And the hardest thing is those vendors. We don't want them to lose any of their precious merch. Like, people bring out the heat with this event. So I remember Sandy and I put those ponchos on before we went out to check in the vendors. And the way the check-in works is she's at the gate, walkies me, and I kind of set them in place. So I'm standing out on the lot with this poncho on. I'm like, why did I even put the poncho on? It's like, you're soaked totally from head to toe. But just like many things happen here at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater in a divine way, that sun came out, that rain cleared out, and we were able to start moving in vendors. I remember we had them park in the front row before we started placing them. And they might have waited for maybe a half hour until it cleared out. The downside is that, when it does rain, that front lot gets wet, the front grassy lot. And that's where we put our vendors for VHS-Fest. So becomes that juggle as well.
It did turn out to be a beautiful day, though.
Yeah, the weather turned out to be great. The crowd was great for, 2 sold out nights. It was pretty mellow overall. We had, as always, Josh from Lunch Meat, and we have Saturn's Core Video who help us put on the show. They were there vending and hanging all weekend. We had special guests. We have the Found Footage Festival. Nick and Joe from the Found Footage Festival came out, and they were vending, and they were hosting the show every night. So they would show us like some Found Footage Fest clips before they would lead into the next film. And they also introduced our special guests, who for the weekend were Patty Mullen, known as the star of Frankenhooker, who showed up in full costume for 2 days and was just amazing. And Larry Pines, who is known to the few and the proud as Mr. Nasty, who is the star of these 2 obscure, I guess they were like gag VHS tapes you would buy for people in the 80s and give to them. And it was just this weird derelict looking guy insulting you into camera.
There is a legend.
It was very interesting.
There is a legend, and it was born at VHS-Fest. The Mr. Nasty tape had gotten passed around in our circle here at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. And you're right, Mark. It is a perfect timestamp of the VHS era. So it is an insult comic tape. So if you disliked somebody, quote unquote, or, kind of wanted to send that gag dislike, it's a diss tape. So you send it, and there's a guy on there who's pretty much telling you, you're the worst. You're the absolute worst. And that guy is known as Mr. Nasty. And this rabbit hole is so deep because it's one of those things that we started playing every single year at VHS-Fest. That, Ernest, a couple choice clips, and people start to expect it, very much like Rico's Nachos. It has become a staple here at the Mahoning. So a stroke of genius and a stroke of luck, the Found Footage Fest guys found Larry Pines, did a short interview, and that connected the dots with us connecting to Larry Pines and seeing if he would be interested in coming out to witness literally the greatest VHS meetup on the planet, I would say at this point, because it's insanity. And thankfully he agreed, because he delivered gold. And by gold, I mean, when we brought him out, we didn't know what to expect. He's an older gentleman. We knew that we wanted him to sign autographs. We wanted him to take pictures with guests. He was totally into that. But he'd never been part of kind of like the convention scene, I guess you'd say. So whenever somebody comes and gets this wave of love, it kind of knocks them on their butts, where it's like, what, like it's hyper focused on them, and they get all this love. And then he's interviewed by the Found Footage Festival guys, and it's almost like a live stage show in a way. You get that interaction from the audience, and nothing will burn into my brain more this year than Larry Pines choosing, not on one night, but 2 nights, to sing a religious hymn to a sold-out Mahoning audience, and they went right along with it. It was so strange, weird, and awesome at the same time.
And I'm up front recording this for our Patreon subscribers, and I'm like, oh, he's maybe just going to sing one
Nope.
one line. Maybe he's gonna keep going. They're like, okay, this is perfect. People have clapped. He said, no, he's going to continue, and it was surreal to say the least. I was Larry's personal driver for the weekend. I picked him up at the hotel and brought him to the theater and back. He was super nice. Just an older guy who'd had some health problems and was had a little bit of a hard time to get around. But he brought the original filthy trench coat and hat from the original Mr. Nasty video, and which I guess had been in storage for decades, since I think he said 86 is when they did it. And at one point, the guy who was with him, a friend of his who was sort of his helper and assistant, asked if we could go make a quick trip to the store because the hat and coat smelled so badly. He thought that nobody would want to get close to Larry to get autographs. And sure enough, I mean, I didn't want to say anything, but sure enough, after they left, my car smelled bad for a couple days. So I'm not saying it was Larry. It was clothing that had been, in storage for a really long time. But it was like he brought the nasty, and as I was saying, like that's taking the character to the next level. Where this guy who in the video is seen emerging from behind a dumpster, and smells like one in person due to the hat and the jacket, the person. But hanging with Larry was really interesting, very interesting guy. And a woman had crocheted a Mr. Nasty doll for him, and she made it with a change of, she wasn't sure if it was a brown coat or a gray coat, so she made 2 different coats for it. And on the second night, when he was brought up to do his Q&A with the Found Footage guys, he brought her with him, and she was just this other person sitting there kind of looking on in amazement as what was going on, and he had her sort of harmonize with him on the hymn. It was a very, very strange evening.
Oh my God. It's exactly what we wanted.
That's entertainment.
In a weird way.
And we also had Laura Wimbles from Midnight Rental, who's sort of part of the Found Footage Festival family of shows. She came out and she introduced the films each night and interviewed Patty both nights, did a little Q&A with Patty both nights, and that was really cool. Speaking of Patty, we were contacted a little bit before the event by a guy who works at Frazetta's, the really amazing costume and prop shop nearby us. Is it, where is Frazetta's?
Frazetta's
In East Stroudsburg. And he wanted to propose to his girlfriend. And the story was that his girlfriend is a big Frankenhooker fan, and she introduced him to that movie, and they both loved the movie. And their first date was at the Mahoning. So he helped with Patty's help and my help and Sandy's help. We put this thing together where when they got up to their spot in line to meet Patty and get their signature, Patty already had written down a little note, and she was going to sign the photo, "Congratulations on your engagement," and then just hand it back to the girlfriend with the boyfriend standing behind her on one knee, ready to go. And we captured video of it, and it all came off perfectly. It was wonderful. And again, if our Patreon viewers can, head on over there and see the video of that. But yet another, I don't know how many it is this season, wedding proposal on the lot. Somebody referred to it. This is the summer of love at the Mahoning.
It's so true. Yeah, it's the guest situation was out of control. We also had Sleazy P.
Yes.
Martini, yes, from the GWAR manager. And there's a great story behind this, in that we were working very hard to try to plan a GWAR event this year, which people, I know they listen to the podcast for some dish. In a weird way, the idea behind bringing him out was to show him what we do and what the Mahoning really is when it's at its peak fandom, like VHS-Fest. And he was uber impressed. He loved the experience. He dressed up as the Sleazy P character, which it was not a cool weekend. It was humid and sweaty, and he was an absolute champion. Not to go too hard into make this the Larry Pine episode, but I consider Nick and Joe like two of the most quick-witted dudes out there. When they're on a stage, they are sharp, they're quick, that's why their show and their legend runs deep. But the greatest moment, and it's terrible to say this, but Larry talked about a story where his heart stopped, and he had this moment where he had passed away for 10 minutes or something like that, and they revived him and brought him back. And he was very grateful, and all that stuff. But Joe, without missing a beat, he goes, "Wait a minute, you were in a Tony's Pizza commercial and dead for 10 minutes?" It was one of the greatest things ever. And Tony, we used to carry Tony's Pizza here, did we not?
Yes, I think years ago.
And they dug up an old Larry Pine's Tony Pizza commercial for night 2. It was just craziness. What other memories pop? It just went on and on for VHS-Fest.
My night's always busy, so I miss a lot of that stuff that goes on outside, because my line for VHS-Fest never stops. They will eat me out of house and home in the stand. And I just remember it being very, very busy, and it was very, very hot. Very hot, very humid. And you just feel like you're going to melt after a while. And everybody comes in and goes, "Why is it so warm in here?" And I'm like, "I have fryers and a popcorn machine and a popcorn warmer, And everybody is so graceful when they come in. And they're always so excited and so happy to talk to us. And they're like, we don't know how you guys do it behind all those fryers and all that equipment, because sometimes we probably look like Frosty the Snowman in the stand.
Yeah, as hot as it is outside, it's like you step into that stand and it's just like, oh.
It's a whole new world. Even just in the door, and then the difference between the door coming in and being behind that line. Everybody knows how hot it is in the stand if I'm wearing sleeves or not, apparently. That's like the new thing. If I don't have sleeves on, it is super, super hot in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of new people for VHS-Fest, too. We had a lot of new people for VHS-Fest. And a lot of people who only just come out for VHS-Fest, I was surprised by. This is the only event we come out for. We live across the country. And I was like, "You only come out for that?" "Yes, we only come out for VHS-Fest. We're always excited to be here. It's our favorite event." There was actually a couple that came out and they were actually going to come to a future event as well. They were so excited to actually be able to make it for 2 events this season. And I said, well, make sure you come in and stop by and say hi.
It's a big cultural meetup.
Yeah, it's one of those shows where people, they want to go for years, and they have to like build up the emotional strength or the finances or the intestinal fortitude to make the trip from wherever they may live. And we always say you just need to get them on the lot once and they're hooked. So I think every year it grows and grows, because every year is that year that people finally make it to VHS Fest, this thing they've read about for years.
Well, I think this one was the biggest one, because those vendors out there were amazing.
Yeah, and we are more than happy to point out when we overstep. And this year it was a learning lesson with the vendors, where I think, had about 15 too many. It was the most we had ever done. I think the year before we had done 40. We tacked on an additional 20. And it was so much. I mean, for a consumer, to have all that going on, but we want every vendor to do gangbusters, which VHS Fest has become known for. So I think for next year, we will likely tick back to that lucky number 40, at least as far as the love for the vendors goes. Worth mentioning, I don't know if you guys saw any of this happening or experienced any of this happening. The great Dinky Pie was filming a documentary during VHS Fest, and he was shooting on classic VHS, of course, doing interviews with all the guests that we had, a lot of the vendors, talking about what VHS Fest has become, what it represents. And I think we have that to look forward to on VHS if it gets done in time for next year.
Wow.
And it's a good segue, because this is the perfect partnership. VHS Fest started in such a organic way, as documented in our documentary At the Drive-In, available now everywhere. But what it has grown into is a true partnership in Ross, in Josh, and in the Mahoning and myself. What we all bring to the table is different flavors. Ross is the shot on video guru, to the point where he has a production company that releases these rare shot on video gems that he somehow unearths, or have become these kind of legendary titles in the VHS world that have never gotten a legitimate release beyond VHS. And we always try to toss that in there, if not both nights, at least one night. And what Josh represents is maybe the purest fandom I've ever seen a person wear and own. There's a thing where we cross paths with so many people who start up their engines and start pursuing their own thing, whether it's art, whether it's things that they sell with the vendors that we run into, whether it's a band, whether it's movies and writing or books or whatever. And Josh is one of those guys who chose to do that so young and early, and push this fanzine in Lunch Meat VHS magazine, which has become truly the staple of VHS culture. And he is the voice of VHS culture. I love him like a brother. And, what we went through last year at VHS, when he lost somebody very close to him as we were rolling into the weekend, it brought all of us together and made this event even more special. So I just love those guys so much and want to give them as much shine as possible for what VHS Fest now is, which is, again, the ultimate fan meetup when it comes to this weird media that, is such a big part of all of our lives, from video stores to parents recording off of cable to, it's just such a unique event, but without a doubt our biggest event, which is so weird to say, because we're the 35 millimeter outfit, and our VHS Fest is like the guaranteed home run every time.
Right.
we could do a whole podcast on VHS Fest, but why don't we keep this train going? That next, we had a Sunday show.
We had part of what the Sunday show was supposed to be.
Oh, such plans. This was maybe the biggest heartbreaker of the year. So Chris at LVAC, who is the mastermind behind all the merch that you guys see, he prints all the merch locally, not just for us, but for many. They also have an offshoot, which is a pretty much a wrestling outfit. So they have come out for the last, 4 years now and done live wrestling underneath of our screen. We program wrestling titles. And this is the first year that we took a different angle with it by programming it right after VHS-Fest. And the reason we did that was Chris was able to get out, promote on site, get people to stay over that extra day to see afternoon wrestling, which is, his whole appeal over the movies. So that whole plan in action. Friday, we get that religious storm before the gates open, and it just starts the gears going of, what are we going to do if Sunday is as bad as this? We can get away with sprinkles, but, we can't have guys wrestling out here in thunder and lightning,
And usually they take a few days to set that wrestling ring up, and it's a full-size professional wrestling ring, and it's on site, for like a day or so before the event. But this time, because VHS-Fest was happening in the area where they do the wrestling was taken up with vendors, they were going to have to set that up on the day of the show. And the forecast was for just severe thunderstorms from midnight until 3 p.m. the next day or something like that.
It was such a heartbreaker to have to make that call. And we tried everything that we could to try to sell it in some way, say, hey, we're bringing out the wrestlers that you were going to see, still have the opportunity to come and meet them. We were even thinking about trying to stage little matches indoors or, out on the grass if it wasn't lightning and thunder. So those guys are just 110%. I know they all look forward to this every single year, and to know that we had to kind of shift so hard and had no place to put it. It's not like we can reschedule it. That wrestling schedule is well in advance. They had, the nice thing about it is we were able to promote their next show, which was at Coca-Cola Park with the Iron Pigs.
Right.
So they had a lot going on. I think we did our best to sell it. And I mean, you still got a great Santo movie, Well,
the thing is, usually the wrestling, you come in and you get 2 hours or more of wrestling for your ticket money, and the films are almost like a bonus. They're almost like a cherry on top of the sundae you just had. And in this case, the films were all you had. So we had a small crowd turn up for it. It was a digital presentation of Santo and Blue Demon versus Dracula and the Wolfman, which was incredibly entertaining. I mean, that was wonderful to see on that big screen. But a lot of the people said, they didn't go because they really were going for the wrestling, or the film was fun, but they really, really missed the wrestling. And so it was a cool, I don't know how many Santa movies have ever been shown at US, certainly English language drive-ins, probably very few. So it was an incredibly rare screening, but it missed the sparkle of the LVAC All-Stars.
Certainly did. But, like anything else, it is a constant pivot. You never know what you're going to get, especially being an outdoor theater. So in that case, we really had nothing we could do. Just like that werewolf weekend, we were kind of pushed to a point where we just had to make a call. So then that Tuesday, what did we have? Make Them Die Slowly that Tuesday?
Yeah.
That fine family film, Make Them Die Slowly.
Speaking of family-friendly film, Virgil had Virgie with him, and he kept telling him, "Don't look at the screen. Don't look at the screen." And when they came into the concession stand, he goes, "I know, Dad. I can't look at the screen." It was the funniest thing in the world.
Tuesdays especially, like Harry pushes the envelope, as we all know. He's played several Cannibal movies, pushing that line. We've had to toss up the warnings. But my munchkin's with me every single Tuesday. Like, there's no way for me to get around it now that Nance is working during the week. So it's really great to see people's reactions as I'm walking him around. Like, is there a child here? Then they realize it's me.
Last night's showing was the same.
That's right.
yesterday we have 400 to 400 internal chats with this organization, and there were some very lovely photos posted of Virgil and the young master laying on a blanket under the screen on a gorgeous day, and I'm just like, and tonight's feature, I spit on your grave.
That's why, without a doubt, I get those comments every Tuesday. Like, he loves these kind of movies, doesn't he? Oh, he came for the movies, didn't he? It's like, but I love the Tuesday vibe. We've talked about it many times. It's like the old days. It's a concentrated fandom. It's not a overwhelm of people. It is a tight-knit group of genre fans that are so appreciative of what we do during the week. It's like a love fest. And Make Them Die Slowly looked amazing. The hard part about having Virgie up here, it is a lot of popping in and out, and I can't kind of do what I do when it's a hardcore movie. But we had some great ones this year. He sat out, he watched some of those comedies with me on Tuesdays. And I think we've done a great job this year of balancing what I call the popcorn kind of lob programming with our deep cut genre stuff, and it's been really great the way that we've been getting out so many new people and finding that fan base that really wants to come out on a Tuesday and see the Ruffies,
And it was a vegan turnout again. I don't understand. They love those cannibal movies. And I remember it being a fairly nice turnout. It took a lot of people a long time to get on the lot because we actually stayed. We had a fire that night after the movie. And I remember the raffle being the poster with the lady with her nips hanging out. And we took blue painter's tape and we put it over the top. So that way, not to offend anybody who came through the stand.
That's right.
And nobody had bought a raffle ticket. And it took so long for anybody to start buying raffle tickets. I told the kids, I said, I'm going to put $1 in the raffle and I'm going to hang her up right on the wall if I win with that blue painter's tape right across her nips. They all laughed at me.
Perfect. Our raffle game has taken a huge leap this year thanks to the great Donnie Morgan. Super fan comes and donates to almost every single show. So now it's a mixture of the stuff that we get from our partners and also really, really cool fan-specific goods. And he does a great job. Not afraid to pop a nip out there for raffle. He knows how to get those dollars.
She did look quite cute with blue painter's tape across her nips, though.
So. I'm telling you. And then we roll into Tromathon, which, boy, oh boy, talk about something that could be its own podcast. Oh my goodness. Personally, I didn't have a ton to do with the booking of Tromathon this year. It was a bit of a juggle as far as the execution of it all, but we survived. I guess I'll let you guys take it as far as your memories.
Well, we had Retroware, who have created. We worked with. We'll talk later on our video game weekend, and they created a video game based on the old Toxic Crusaders cartoon and toy line. So they were set up with their new video game, which I want to say was not released yet, in the snack bar, and they had a couple stations with big TVs where people could play that. We had live bands playing all day. We had the director of Eating Miss Campbell, who flew in from England, who apparently he met Jeff and he was like almost getting down on one knee, shaking Jeff's hand. He said he'd followed us from afar for years and always wanted to come out and was excited to have his film playing on our screen. That was really cool. It was a mix of a couple newer Troma films? Maybe it was mostly older Troma films. We had a couple on film and the rest were on video. And JT was there dressed as the Toxic Avenger, and Lisa was Sarah. And day one, JT was in a Toxic Avenger costume that emulated the Toxic Crusaders thing. So it was totally different, like makeup and getup. And then day two, he was there as the normal Toxic Avenger. Lloyd Kaufman was there signing and kissing hands and shaking babies, as I like to say, for free. And everybody was just a huge line of people going to get photos taken with him and Toxie and Sarah. And it was Beth has some stories. We all have some stories.
It's a hard weekend. We never know what to expect when it comes to the Troma fandom.
It's an eclectic mix. It's so strange though, because I'm not a huge fan of the movies. they just don't do it for me. That kind of genre of movie. But to see a lot of older people that came out, people with kids who came out to see the Toxic Avenger movie. We had a couple that were in from England. They were in the area. I think they came in for a wedding or something. They said, "Oh, well, we just decided to stop by because we don't have drive-ins in Europe and this, that, and the other thing." And I'm like, "And you came for this weekend?" As I'm like
They'll never
looking
forget
at
it.
Crystal because what did I do? I made a Noxy Toxy, so it was like a spicy hot dog with like a relish mix on it that Lisa had wanted for a special for Trauma. And I was looking at Crystal and I'm like, those poor people don't know what they're getting into right now. It's definitely interesting. You never know what you're going to see in the stand.
Condiment Man.
Yeah. Well, yes, there was Condiment Man. He really didn't buy a lot of food in the stand, but we sat and we watched him mix pickles and barbecue sauce and mayonnaise into one of those little condiments, like single serving cups, and eat it with a
Legend.
fork. And
Condiment Man lives.
and
Where's his 12-foot shrine?
He came in on Saturday and he ordered nachos, and we had the little Rico's nachos cups. So we handed him everything and whatever else. And before he even got down to the register, he was literally dumping it furiously all over the chips. And he had cheese all over his hands and he's licking his hands and he's trying to hand us money. And we're all like, I almost want to look and go, you know what? Those are on me. Like, just go enjoy your nachos. And he went over and literally put every condiment from the condiment table onto his nachos. And Max is like down the line. He's going, that's him. That's the guy. That's the condiment guy. I'm like, yes, I know. Stop it. Because I'm still like, he's still a customer. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, we'll discuss when he leaves. We can't do this right now. Yeah. But, yeah, it's a very, very interesting crowd. We did have rain that weekend too. That came through on Saturday, I think it was.
It was on
kind
Saturday.
of like the
Religious
VHS-Fest. It really came in. It was like, I think there were some tornado warnings and stuff that came through, and they finally got to the point where they had to bring Lloyd in. And I mean, the stand, of course, with where it sits, and the water was just coming in, and here I am running around with no shoes and socks on again because I need to buy some galoshes.
Half the audience crowded into the stand to get out of the rain, and as the rain and the water level is rising, they're getting like compressed more and more into the center as water is coming in one side and coming in the other.
The party moved inside. Mark pulled the doors closed because the wind was the doors were like shutters. They were just slamming back and forth. So he just closed the doors. He's like, I don't want anybody to think that they can't come in, but realistically, we can't. I mean, the rain was just blowing in the doors. I mean, Vince was
crazy. Total sideways.
Wet.
Yeah.
It was it's something else.
Like Lieutenant Dan when he's on that ship. It's like, bring it on!
And Lloyd and everybody who was in the photo op, it was a covered photo op, so they were standing there waiting for it to pass. And I saw some video somebody shot of like the top of the tarp covering the photo op was flapping, and they finally, as you said, they had to bring him in because it was getting a little scary to be outside under that thing with lights on stands around them and stuff like that. One other thing I remember from that weekend was there was a cute little kid dressed up like the Toxic Avenger, or dressed up like the Toxic Crusaders Toxic Avenger, and the kid had a little mop or a little broom, and it was that kid, when that kid looked at JT as Toxie, I believe that kid thought it was looking at the same thing it was looking at in the movies. Like, and when that's cool with when we have cosplayers and actors come out and stuff too, is that sometimes little kids, they don't see the difference between fantasy and reality, and as far as they're concerned, that thing they like stepped out of the movies and into reality, and it's cool when we can give people that experience.
Zach is a regular, and he's done such an amazing job. We're friends on socials as well, but he does such an amazing job including his kid in his love of genre, and he's so great every time that he's out. Getting the kid involved, getting amazing shots. They've been out a couple times this year, but shout out to all the parents who love to bring their kids out to the drive-in, because as we know, it can set them on a path, really inspire them for life. And then after that, on that Sunday, we had our tribute to the King, George A. Romero, with, I would call it maybe the most deep cut double feature when it comes to the Romero titles. You would say, oh, they're going to play Night of the Living Dead or hit some of the zombie titles. But not us. What did we hit, Mark?
We had The Dark Half and Monkey Shines, not in that order.
And it was a beautiful night. It was honestly one of those nights, again, like a Tuesday, that you get the appreciation crowd, the people who really do want to come and respect the fact that it's on 35 millimeter, love what we do, and really appreciate the fact that we're not showing the on the nose stuff, and they get to cross off some bucket list Romero titles underneath the beautiful Mahoning sky. So honestly, first time ever watching Monkey Shines was that night. And it's one of those titles, you know, running a video store as long as I did, being a lover of the genre. It's one of those images that is burned into your brain, very much like the Chucky 2 image of Chucky chopping the Jack in the Box heads off, you know? It is, for some reason, a movie that has eluded me. And boy, oh boy. For those people that have seen it, the ending of this movie just gets so batshit crazy. But yeah, we had some great laughs at the end of that movie because I was so blindsided, and we were all watching it together, a big old group of us, including Harry. And the reactions across the crowd of just like, I don't want to spoil it, but you must watch it and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And then that Tuesday, what did we have that Tuesday?
That Tuesday was the Hong Kong Shaw Brothers classic Inframan.
Oh my God. So again, if we present it, they will come. And the excitement to see Inframan on the big screen was fever pitch that night. One of our best turnouts for a Tuesday, and really does fall into that, I don't know, what would you say, like kaiju, Godzilla genre?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it delivers, you know, like what we love is old school practical effects, maddening off the wall concepts, and Inframan is certainly that. Why don't you give people a breakdown of what Inframan is, Mark?
Inframan is basically a riff on Ultraman, if you know Ultraman, and it was released in the U.S. at a time where the Bionic Man, $6 Million Man was big. So in all the U.S. ads, they say, "The man beyond bionics." But it's really this guy who is sort of part robotic or part bionic who can turn into a giant-sized person to fight giant monsters. And some woman, queen of the underworld or something, some really insanely dressed woman who looks like she was in a Japanese female version of Kiss, is unleashing monsters upon the world so she can take over the world, and it's up to Inframan to beat them into submission.
It was a fantastic experience to watch it with people. I always say the Mahoning is a time machine sometimes, to be able to experience some of these titles theatrically, but to be able to experience it what I would imagine it would be like to watch with like a New York City theater where, you know, the people who are there paid their buck, they appreciate it, it's their thing, and people were just so into it. We did pull a lot of new people that night too, and I love whenever people come and just get like whacked over the head with what we do, where it's like, oh my God, because Harry puts together a full reel of themed trailers before we roll into the movie proper. And as you could imagine, there was some deep cut gold on that reel. And whenever we get cheers for the trailer reel, you just know you're getting into one of those nights. And yeah, that was one of those nights for sure.
I didn't stay, but I know that John Dahl was DJing that night. And I heard that he was playing like a lot of anime intro music or ending credits music, because Max was having a stroke in the stand. He was like, oh my gosh, he needs to stop playing this stuff. And I said, why? Like, that Japanese like intro music's fantastic. He's like, it's terrible.
Not his bag. John is
Definitely
an amazing DJ.
He always does.
Oh,
always.
he crushes. I love.
And he came around with the pins and was giving everybody the pins.
Yes. This year, we've opened up the slots on the calendar even more than we ever have. And some of the new folks coming in to rock some DJ sets. It is, once again, another layer of the icing that we put on these shows. It'd be really fun to come out and watch Inframan, regardless, at any theater. But you toss that insane trailer reel on there. You toss the catered DJ set on top of it. And if you get a beautiful night, which we've been getting some really great ones lately, it's just something these people will never forget.
Right.
And then that weekend, well, this really became the week. And we knew getting into it, whenever we do a Thursday show, it becomes a marathon to get through the weekend. But this was a stacked lineup. So on Thursday, we were approached by the Times News in Lehighton, our local newspaper, to see if we wanted to do an event with them. So naturally put our heads together and are like, will network play at the drive-in? And, trying to think of those news themed titles, and landed on the perfect one with Superman, the OG Superman, Chris Reeves, Gene Hackman. And that, talk about a beautiful night. We had a t-shirt, which was To Die For by the amazing Tom Bafuco. And the girls from Times News came out and they were like, this is the best event that we've done all summer. Like, when can we come back? So great local crowd. They ran ads for us. One of those great community events that we have had a few of them this year that really worked well. And doing that news theme angle, I think we really found the right title.
It's a movie that I've loved passionately since I saw it when it came out when I was a little kid. So to be able to see it again, and I think this is maybe the third time we've shown it since I've been coming to the all retro, all 35 Mahoning, and maybe the best print we've ever run. Looked perfect, gorgeous on that big screen. And
yeah, it was the opposite of the first time we showed it. Were you there for that one?
I was, and I was watching it, and I'm like, they should burn this print. This should throw it away. It was like, if this so is what
I can't believe you came back after that. We love you, buddy.
Well, hey, but it was great to see
that pink, red.
Oh God, it was like it made the film less enjoyable because you were so distracted by the fact that there was just shades of pink and red in there, magenta. But no, this one is beautiful. I don't remember. I know I always ask the folks in the projection booth what the strike date is on some of the prints that we run because they look so good. Like the print we ran last weekend, I'm like, there's no way this is an original. It looks brand new. And I think they said it was like an early-ish 2000s strike for that Superman print, but it was perfect.
Yeah. And you could just tell, again, people reliving their childhood on that lot because that is a movie that still works like it was coming out today. Amazing work on display. Like you said, Mark, it is a movie that really made you believe, and it still does, that Chris Reeves can fly. And talk about the memories of this season. I don't know if it gets any better than the Agfa Triple Ripper. And, a lot of people will notice that the partnerships is the mode that we have gone into, beyond Exhumed Films. A lot of our shows are tag teaming with somebody within the genre or the theme of what we're trying to do. Agfa has been absolute champions of not just 35 millimeter, but what we have been trying to do at the Mahoning since day one. They support all of our digital screenings for Patreon, most of our digital screenings for Patreon, and even for VHS-Fest. I believe this year, the majority of all of our titles came from Agfa. So we brought Ivan out from Texas. He brought some prints with him. He brought some trailer reels with him. He brought some books with him. Break down this lineup for the people, Mark, because if you're a genre fan, like, people made sure to get to this one. They made sure to get to this one. Like, you can't miss it. It was great.
Well, it was interesting because the first film was technically not it was weird. So it was the first segment it was all Hong Kong supernatural films, I want to say from 1983 that we played. And the first film was a segment of this movie called Haunted Tales. And when I heard it was the first segment of an anthology film, a lot of us internally were like, oh, it's going to be 15 minutes. It's going to be maybe 20 minutes because most anthology films are like 3, 4, 5 stories. Well, this was a feature-length film that had 2 stories. So it was actually an hour long. And I'm not going to get into detail about anything here, but it was really wild and interesting, except from 1980. Then we had a film called Red Spells Red from 1983, which was just bonkers. And then we had Devil Fetus. Need I say more? From 83. That was crazy. And then the one that most of us were most excited to see, the hardest to see film, there's very little information even on the internet about this, was a film called, or under this title, The Magic BMX, which was like an E.T. ripoff, Hong Kong E.T. ripoff from 83 about this kid he gets bullied a lot. He's a rich kid who gets bullied, and this little alien baby comes down from space and can do magic things. And it's the movie I most wanted to see. And if you know me, you can finish this train of thought. I most wanted to see it. It was the last film on the bill. And wouldn't you know, I did not stay awake for the whole film. I had a lot of long blinks during that film. And it was a shame because it was just crazy. And all of the intermission reel stuff was all from AGFA. And it was just deep cut and weird. The infamous Jaws 2 trailer played again. And that brought the house down again. And I think it did about double the business we did the last time. So it's a show that's a slow build, but I think as word gets out that this is the kind of show that the Alamo Drafthouse used to do all the time and doesn't do anymore. So we're really the only drive-in anywhere, one of the few theaters anywhere doing a show quite like this.
It's the most punk rock night of the year where you're just like, this is 35 millimeter love to the max, putting your trust in the programmer, in Ivan in this case, and it just beat us over the head. I love, just like the comedy rattles throughout the whole entire crowd and becomes infectious to the audience, the laughter, the reactions. When you get those reactions to these unbelievable images happening before your very eyes, and you can turn to the person that you're with and are like, what is happening? It's such a community stroke that you can't even put into words. Anybody who was there for that night will never forget that night.
You and I watched the end of the one movie. We were standing outside the doorway, and you were howling at the end of the one movie.
Not.
And you could hear Bruno was on the other side of the lot, and you could hear him howling because you can't miss Bruno's voice when he's on the lot.
He's definitely the next most recognizable.
And oh my gosh, we were out there laughing hysterically at those movies. It was a long night. It was a hard night to figure out intermissions because we weren't sure about that first short that was being played that didn't turn out to be a short. The guys did a really great job trying to keep those intermission times like super, super tight with those trailer reels that they provided us. We stepped out and we watched one of the trailer reels. What was it? The guy was getting eaten by like a hot dog machine or something. There was something weird going on.
It was a weird short film that was like a spoof of concession stand trailers.
Yeah,
and it was so basically strange. Somebody was being like killed by the food in the concession stand. It was weird.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Like, where did he unearth this from? And that's what AGFA's great for. They have dug through collection after collection, milling for that gold, and they come and curate at the theater. It's like a dream come true for a 35 millimeter fan. And you hit it on the head, Mark. This is one that's going to grow every single year. I mean, I know it. There are people who so regret missing it after the word spread because we're still talking about Magic BMX. And that might have been the most rare print of the year. I know that I think QT had just acquired it. And from what I understand, that might be the only one. But man, what an experience. What an absolute home run. And this is a nice segue because single event show on a Friday. The Mahoning made its name on these weekend-long events that everybody knows and loves. A lot of our annuals, Camp Blood, Zombie Fest, Universal Monsters, VHS-Fest. But this year we took a little pivot and started doing some single-day shows. A lot of reasoning behind that. But the best move with doing this was we get to have weekends like this where we can have our cake and eat it too. We can do maybe the most off-the-wall, bonkers genre programming on a Friday night when it can actually pull the audience that it deserves instead of plopping it on a Thursday or a Sunday, which I think we did last year. And then bring Ninja Turtles in for a fan event on Saturday and pack the place to the gills. We're talking sold out numbers, and the fandom. Look, when you do a Ninja Turtles event, the fandom comes out, young to old. There's nobody that doesn't love the Turtles.
It was huge.
Gigantic.
Huger than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It was a shock. I have no words.
What was interesting too is the sales were healthy, and then in 48 hours, the show sold out. It went from like 300 tickets to 650, and we were sold out.
It's one of those things that, once people caught wind of what was going on the week of, it's got so many people clamoring for it that naturally it shoots, and it worked out perfectly. We had some incredible guests. We had Big Kid Toy Store, which has come out to support some of our shows, and they add such a flavor to what we do. The thought behind this fan event, 35 millimeter fan event with Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, was very much like the Muppets, in that we were going to try to tap as many different medium that this fan base has touched. And when you're talking about Ninja Turtles and IP that big, it has worked its way into everything. It's the fabric of our lives at this point. But we were able to get an amazing comic book artist out with Chris Allen, who had a line all day. He was doing personalized sketches. I don't know if you guys caught wind of that, but he was doing requests like, hey, do you want Michelangelo punching you across the face? It was nuts. So that brought the comic book angle. We had Big Kid there covering the deep well of the toy and collectible angle. Nothing but turtle stuff covering 2 booth tents, which was awesome. And the intros, which I got to give a huge hats off, not just to Mark, who's been crushing it, connecting the dots with the intros, but also the amazing Gene Beretta, because this is so connected to the Henson Company. We were able to we had Leif Tilden, who was Donatello. We had Kevin Clash, who was Splinter. We had Michael Pressman, of course, the director of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. We had Michael Sisti, who was Michelangelo, who showed off not only his screen-used nunchucks, but also his screen-used cold cuts, which were used in the second movie when parents lost their mind that the first movie was too violent, so they started fighting each other with toys in a toy store. God, it was, this is right up my alley when it comes to fandom. Like, my childhood was Ninja Turtles and He-Man, and when this movie came out, there was nothing bigger in the world. And ironically enough, as we go into next week, same situation with the Super Mario Brothers movie. There are certain things that hit you when you are at the right age where nobody can argue whether this is a quote unquote good movie or not. It's like, this represents my childhood, and it doesn't matter what your opinion is. And then on that Sunday, we had wrapped things up with a little bow for our Christmas in July celebration with the ultimate Christmas movie, certainly the most debatable, Die Hard. Finally, as many know, we are working with the Disney Studios coming out of their vault, which now is also the Fox vault. So finally got an opportunity to program Die Hard. And this is one that always plays like a dream. Everybody loves Die Hard. And the fact that we were able to decorate the theater with some Christmas themes. Sandy did a great job with the setup. And Mama Beth, you actually helped out with a couple different pieces for the photo op too, right?
I did. I brought in some ornaments in that for her, and I built her a fire for her fireplace.
That's right.
Yep.
I'm telling you, the crafty side of you coming out.
I said, well, listen, I'm very crafty.
Yeah, well, for those who don't know, Mama Beth used to be in charge of a bunch of little munchkins. What was it, preschool?
Yes. Yeah, I worked in childcare for years. And I still run childcare.
in many, many ways.
I do.
But that's a marathon run of a weekend right there, to go Thursday through Sunday with big doubles, triples, fan events. It's nuts. And that Sunday, definitely worth noting, was a market day, which we have been trying out this year. And I don't know about your opinion, Mama Beth, but they've been some of the best days on the lot. When we're able to bring the vendors out, it adds a whole other flavor.
The market days, I just don't come home with a paycheck anymore. That's what I find out on those market Sundays. I'm out there buying jewelry and all sorts of crazy stuff.
We did one of those last weekend, and as Crystal was about to go out, I looked at her and I'm like, do you mean to hold on to your wallet when you go do that?
Yeah, I didn't buy cats in jars, but I do hit up the jewelry and the earrings and the action figures and the pins. I'm addicted to pins, okay?
Oh, yeah. The amazing artists that come out and are involved with the Mahoning Drive-In, the vendors, it's so much fun to be able to, before the sun drops, go around and see all the goods that they got. And naturally, it becomes a little thrift story, punk rock flea market-y, where you're digging through crates, you're digging through goods to find that. I love it.
On that day, too, I wasn't there, but I got mine belatedly. I believe it was the Sroka family went around and gave all of the staffers Christmas cookies they had made for us and handmade Christmas cards. Each individual person, they were each different. And that was it warmed my cold heart.
It was very, very sweet. It was a hard day for me. We were at Ninja Turtles. We didn't get home until I think probably about 2:30 or so. I had to take Jeff to the airport for a 6:30 flight because he was leaving for Texas. I came home and I crashed for a couple hours, and then I had to go down to the drive-in because Sunday I do stock for the week. So I had to be there to do stock, and the kids wanted to have a fire. So we had a fire too.
It never ends.
It doesn't end.
It's
a party all the time.
I love the barrel fire. Mama Beth breaks my balls. Now I got the munchkin, so I always have to duck out early to get the kid to bed.
You can use that as an excuse all you want, Pulaski. To duck out on us too.
How dare you?
Like Virgie said, you are a baby.
But it's one of those things. You guys have the stamina for days.
We did not leave last night. Well, this morning.
Yeah, tell me about
4:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got alert on the phone. I was like, oh my God, they're still here. What's going on?
Yep.
You guys are nuts. It does. It reminds me of the the old days. Yes. Where were we? Oh, Napoleon Dynamite. Probably the most confused I was when Harry sent over the Tunnel Vision lineup. It certainly isn't a title I would put as an Exhumed title. Certainly not a title I would have expected Harry to program. It's very modern, certainly a unique humor, but oh my goodness. People love this movie. People were so excited that we were programming something that fell into their fandom and wheelhouse. A lot of new people. Newbie Tuesdays, and boy, you couldn't hold on to tater tots that night.
No, I sold 31 orders of tater tots. I couldn't believe it.
We're just like, keep giving me tots.
I had even said, I'm like, do we even offer French fries tonight, or do we just offer tater tots?
Yeah, Mark had sent at the end of the night the reports that we run, and it was general tickets, highest item, and number 2, tots.
Tater tots.
People just can't get enough. They can't. And we'll never forget that one. We had many a cosplayer, people showing up. My favorite line of the night was there was somebody who came dressed as Napoleon and Pedro. And one of the kids that was there said, hey, your dad's a great Uncle Rico. And he's like, she goes, he's not dressed up. I was like, he's really pulling it off. He's like, that's just how he dresses. He dresses like Uncle Rico. And then talk about a marathon. We jump into Schlock O Rama. And this year, just like every year, we rolled 10 films over 3 nights and quadruple features on Friday and on Saturday. So a little bit shorter of films, but man, it doesn't make that much of a difference when it comes to that run. So what are your guys' memories on Schlockorama?
I love that genre of film. That's what people think of when they think of, in quotes, drive-in movies. And nobody shows that stuff publicly anymore. So it's always a thrill to be able to see stuff of that vintage and that giant monster insanity. I was super dubious about It Came from Outer Space in 3D, in the red blue anaglyph 3D, because to my knowledge, drive-ins never show 3D movies, never did originally. And it didn't work too bad. I mean, I think it worked as well as anaglyph 3D ever works, which is fair to middling. But a lot of, just because of the nature of the colors, and they sort of flicker on each other, and if print fades, the color fades, and all that other stuff. But a lot of people said how much they enjoyed the 3D effect, which was really cool on a giant screen. The rest of the prints were just gorgeous and looked amazing. Our friend Eric, who's been helping with the theater off and on for many years, showed up in his Metaluna mutant mask from This Island Earth, and the giant alien head mask, and then tails, like a tux and tails, which is a really cool look. And it was just a super fun weekend.
My favorite picture of that weekend, I got a shot of him just sitting there with his coffee, like he was just chilling out. It was just great because it's like it wasn't a promoted part of the show or a photo op or anything like that. People got great photos, but I loved in the downtime, very much like when we did that Little Shop of Horrors, and Audrey too had to just kind of chill out in the corner.
I think seeing Mike inspecting the 3D film with 3D glasses on, because I walked in the projection room and he like looked at me and I'm like, why the hell you have 3D glasses on? Like, I thought he had really lost his mind. And he's like, no, it's a 3D film. And I'm like, what? So here he was inspecting the film with the 3D glasses on. And you had actually come in at one point during the night and said, did you guys check out the 3D? And we went out to be able to see the 3D movie. It looked really neat. It really did.
It breaks new ground, like we talked about it for a long time about, hey, can we do a 3D show? Can we do stuff in 3D? And we have, in a way. We did Freddy's Dead, right?
Yeah, there's like a reel of that's in 3D.
Yes.
Yeah, where it tells you, this is the point to put on your glasses. But it was really fun to make it work. And, again, adds a real classic element when you walk the lot and everybody's wearing their red and blues, takes it back to, again, a certain era where the gimmick was real.
I think it's such a nice crowd too, because it is, I mean, the numbers were really, really healthy for that weekend, but it doesn't seem overwhelming. Like where sometimes you can have a lighter night and it just seems so overwhelming in the stand, but like it was just a nice group that came through. I'm very appreciative of us playing those movies. That want to be there, want to see those movies. A lot of our regulars, a lot of new people too, that were really excited to come in and see those movies.
That's what's great about the business model, I guess, that we've been pushing. It's reliant on being appreciative and reliant on you kind of giving yourself over to the experience. And it is very much the opposite, and we've talked about this many a time on the podcast, of the indoor experience. You're going for a very disposable, in most cases, trip to the movies when you're going to an indoor, renting your seat, getting your quick hour and a half to 2 hours in and out, boom. Where with us, you're literally immersing yourself in a full world, a fandom, a culture, for some people, a lost culture. And it this year more than any other, you can see the growth with those new people where they come and they have that feeling that we all did when we first came here. This is special. This is my special place. This is now my place that I can come and be who I want to be. And I love seeing this family grow, and over the years the family change, but nothing changes when it comes to the appreciation and respect of what we do. I think a lot of places have to deal with trashed lots and disrespect at the gate, or a lot of fighting through the customer experience, things like that. We very rarely get that situation. The people that come here are coming here for a reason and know what we're all about. So we're very lucky on that front. After that, we ran into
Deliverance.
Yes. Every single year, right after Schlock, I usually do a getaway where it's right in the middle of the year, hitting our kind of 3-month mark. And that was the case this year. Took a little trip with Fancy and Virgie up to Poconos, only about like a half hour away from the theater, but got out of the head. Really, really great to recharge the battery and come back strong. But so depressing to miss Deliverance, especially after seeing what Gene pulled out of his hat. He called me with this idea, and I told him, I said, look, I'm not going to be there, but I am giving you full access. Whatever you need, make this happen and bring that love to the fans. So why don't you explain? Mama Beth, you were there. Mark, you facilitated this too as well.
I said that's a great idea, but unfortunately, I wasn't there. And it's a movie I love. And what better way to see a movie like Deliverance that's set outdoors than seeing it outdoors in a rural setting? But I think Beth probably had if not a front row view, at least an across the snack bar view of what happened.
We are the worst managers in the world because I left. So
none of us were there that night.
Let me explain. And just in case no one understands, my food orders come in on Tuesday. So I generally leave my house at like about 9 in the morning. I'm there at around 10. And it's like my equipment clean, do my thing kind of day. So fryers get cleaned on Tuesday. Everything gets kind of wiped down, cleaned, and done. And then generally he's there by 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then my crew will come in around 4:30. So I try and help them get ready. I set up the raffle for them. I was very upset that there were no banjos in the raffle. I was very, very upset by this. But once Jeff got there, I was like, I'm going to head out. And he's like, you're leaving? And I'm like, Jeff, it's no different than any other Tuesday. Virgil is here or not. No, I'm leaving for the day. So, no, I actually saw the video on Facebook of them playing the dueling banjos. And I was very upset that I missed it. I knew about it, but I didn't realize that was going to happen like that.
As we all were. Jeff introduced Gene and God, I wish I could remember his buddy's name, to the mic. They came up, played some dueling banjos to lead us into that trailer reel, and they crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. Not the first time that we added some music to a Tuesday, just kind of out of the blue. I think we talked about it, bringing that harpist in for Stand By Me early in the year. I love that idea of bringing a little extra fun to the Tuesdays on what is naturally a more laxed kind of hangout day. And Gene, you're the best. What can we say? You are the best.
I think the add-on to the story is we went tubing the next day right after playing Deliverance. So the comments that came on my Facebook page were, wow, you're really brave after watching a movie like Deliverance. So I said I didn't hear any banjos. We were safe. We went down the Lehigh River. We made it safely back home, and we were good to go. So.
The calendar this year, like we've talked about, with trying these single day shows, it's allowed us to try some new things that maybe we wouldn't have done if we weren't able to do some extra stuff this year. And just like every single year, we put out the call on the social media for double feature suggestions. And the greatest suggestion of all of these double features, the one that rose right to the top for me, came from a family member with Val, with the Legend of Billie Jean, Desperately Seeking Susan double bill to represent Ladies Power. So that night was truly a Ladies Power night, without a doubt. Yeah, the Rebel event was a fantastic night. And Mark, you can talk about it a bit. Val's not there, is she?
She's several floors below me entertaining right now. So making all kinds of food that I'm currently not eating. Oh. Right. So yeah, she came up with that idea and really sort of took it upon herself to steer that ship as much as she could. So she DJ'd solo for the first time, and everybody really loved that, weaving in stories of tales of, Desperately Seeking Susan set in New York City, and she's from that area and knows a lot of the locations. So talked a lot about the story behind that film and the locations in that film and personal stories about music and all this other stuff. And people really, really, they're like begging her. Krista is like ready to give up her next DJ set so that Val can come back and DJ again. And then we had a Helen Slater intro, which blew my mind. And that was like a 0 hour. That came in not long before the show. At the last minute, I was like, maybe I'll just contact Helen Slater and see if she'll do it. And almost no time. No, it wasn't no time. I did that, and then I forgot about it. And then you congratulated me on the intro, and I was like, "What intro?" And I looked in our email. She had sent a really nice, really sweet, and lovely discussion of the Legend of Billie Jean, which people said she rarely talks about. So that was really a cool way to kick off the night. The film prints looked perfect. It was a really great night. And our friend Jay, shouldn't say this in front of Harry, but Jay was like, "That's one of the best nights here ever. That's better than Camp Blood." And I know he had to see Legend of Billie Jean for a long time at our theater. He was like the first person I told when we got the artwork for it. So
yeah, he's been talking about that one for a long time.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful night. Really great vibes, two great flicks. I had not seen either of those probably ever in full and really enjoyed them. And, bravo to Val for spearheading that notion.
Yeah, just like the David Lynch event that we just got through, whenever we can bring somebody in, again, that's connected to the love of these films, the genre, whatever the case is, it elevates the event to a whole other level. And Val was perfect when it came to really knowing what the fans were going to want when they came. And it was such a treat. And worth mentioning, again, to keep with the ladies theme, our very own Krista, Robert's girlfriend in the projection booth, ran her very first full film with us with Desperately Seeking Susan all on her own, which was very fitting with it being the night that it was. Absolutely crushing it this year with Rob's been Obi-Wanning her in a way of, passing along the knowledge. And it's been really great to see, to have a loving couple that work that well together and that close together. It's really, really great. And she did fantastic.
I realized on the night that had to have been the first time a woman projected a film at our drive-in, because traditionally it's been, a few different projectionists over the years for long stretches, but traditionally it was always a very male profession. And I asked Jeff, and he said, as far as he knew, that was true. So that was kind of a little bit of Mahoning history being made at a night dedicated to fierce females, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, very fitting. And then on that Saturday and Sunday, again, cake and eat it too situation, we brought back our beloved video game weekend with our friends at RetroWare, who we brought up with the Toxic Avenger game that they worked on at Tromathon. And this, again, was another dream come true event. We were able to play the original Mario Brothers movie celebrating its 30th anniversary, which we've hit a couple 30th anniversaries this year. But I remember the day that this movie came out, how big a deal it was when this movie came out. Now, of course, it's legendary for being one of the worst movies ever produced. But it is one of those movies that is so bad you gotta love it. The people that grew up with it just still love it for all the right or wrong reasons, depending how you look at it. But the Mario fandom came out in a big way. And I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but the programming this year, seeing some of the first run theaters have so much fun with the IP over the last year with Mario Brothers, and then with the Ninja Turtles movie, which just dropped recently. That was totally on my mind when it came to booking this year. And the thought was like, okay, let's try to use the big budget advertising behind all this stuff and try to do an ode to the classic era of Mario and Turtles and, some of these other things that are popping out now with the remakes. So that really worked incredibly well. We had young and old, once again, just like that Ninja Turtles event. Everybody loves Mario. They have a memory with Mario. He is just their guy. So We had amazing t-shirts, amazing vendors and posters for that event. And I don't know, what are your guys' memories there? I'm going to get into the video game tournament of it all, but what are your memories? It was a long day with the early gate, for sure.
I think him just coming in with those big arcade games and setting them all up like that. It was just the neatest thing.
Yeah.
And then we had kids coming up and asking us for quarters, and he has them set up so you don't have to feed the machines. And Max was trying to explain to him, no, you don't have to feed the machine quarters in order to be able to play it. It was just very, very interesting.
Free play? Yeah. How does this all work?
Mm-hmm.
It made me very, jealous of the theaters that may have the room to pop some cabinets in there, because Justin owns and operates Arcade in Lansdale, which is not far from where I live. And he does an amazing job. Same situation like our Back to the Arcade friends in Allentown area, where you pay flat rate. You can play all day. All sorts of classic cabs, pinballs, whatever the case is. But he brought out a couple different cabinets. He brought out the classic Popeye, which that was my game when it came to Nintendo. I jumped on that cabinet immediately. What else did he have? He had
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong, yes.
Yes.
He had OG Donkey Kong, and we had a great discussion that night about maybe the best villain to hero turn in the history of storytelling.
Probably.
Donkey Kong, he's beloved. Mr. Doze, oh my God, we were having so much fun with that Mr. Doze cabinet. I don't even know. It's just like he drops the knowledge when he comes out. He brings the love when he comes out. The vendors were amazing. Virgil was in heaven. Found so many cool games. And then we had an on-screen video game tournament. Once the sun set, we did a plethora of gaming tournaments. We did speed runs for the original Mario Brothers. We did Super Mario Kart. We did, of course, Super Smash Brothers, the most recent one, which people take very seriously, let me just tell you. But that first night, fantastic. Went all the way until probably 3:30 in the morning with that competition. Tried to keep it a little tighter on Sunday, but it didn't matter because it poured. Just like year one when we did Video Game Weekend. By the end of the night, we were all huddled under a tent. The tournament players waiting for each other, cheering each other on. And it was very, again, organic, taking it back to its roots. Everybody who came had a great time. I think my favorite memory would have been the father and daughter who were battling it out together on Mario Kart. And the father, it was neck and neck. And the father got so upset that he lost to his daughter that he jumped up and down in the digital booth. It was raining at that point, and knocked over the console, reset everything. But it was great because you could hear the reactions on the mic, and you could just tell it was this memory that they had just made together. But another fantastic event. That one will be back again for sure. Talking to Justin, we're going to try to do a single night Saturday. I think we definitely lost some people on Sunday, and when it came to the competition, we could easily jam that up into one night. And a lot of meat on that bone when it comes to some themed events we can do and tap into the video game fandom. So stay tuned for all that. What do we have that next Tuesday?
The Naked Gun.
Yes. Again, I mean, just like Airplane, similar crowd. I don't know if we had the same repeat crowd, but a lot of new people trying us out. Movie played fantastically. I mean, we've said it, maybe one of the most quotable movies. That and Airplane are just, it delivers. For me, I mean, best memory, stayed up late with Bruno and Donnie and Johnny Dahl, and we ran a triple feature, a Leslie Nielsen triple bill, which, hold on, let me think of it. We came up with lots of Leslie, which is what we would call it if we actually programmed it. But that was a really, really fun night, really fun time for sure. And does that bring us up to date?
Are you crazy?
No.
Am I crazy?
Next was Bond.
Yes, this may have been the longest weekend of the season for sure. We had our James Bond Sale 2. We had our Shot Out of a Cannon Dusk Till Dawn events. And then we had our Beach Blanket Bingo on that Sunday. So, Mark, why don't you talk about you had an amazing your friend came out again for James Bond and brought all his that was amazing.
My friend Hank is a major Bond fan and collector since the 60s, and he has a huge collection of posters. And last time we did this, he brought out just a crazy array of posters and magazines and records and lobby cards and stills that were related to the films we ran. And he did the same for this one. We ran You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and The Spy Who Loved Me. And he had this amazing display of, like, I think they were originally bus posters for The Spy Who Loved Me that he had attached to this giant piece of cardboard. And it didn't really fit anywhere. So we wound up putting it where the old photo op area was inside. And it became a photo op that people would stand in front of and take their picture with. And it was just a great night. You know, it was just a night filled with Bond fans, and Brendan DJ'd and played music from the years of the films. And the prints were, I think, 2 out of the 3 released were original prints that Harry has that were Technicolor and looked like the day they came out. They just looked perfect. And as a huge fan, it was just a really great night for me. But it was a late one because they're all like 2-hour movies. And, you know, you can't start until, I think at that point we were starting at least 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we kept saying it was a difference of 10 minutes from the Dusk Till Dawn that we ran the next night.
Yeah.
So they were essentially 2 Dusk Till Dawns back to back. And it was a marathon. Energized, though, by the amazing canon fandom that we had come out on Saturday night with...
We opened up with American Ninja, followed by Masters of the Universe, followed by...
Cosmic Key! Sorry.
What a weird movie that is.
I love that.
We were so excited to see that movie.
If anybody hasn't listened to the podcast, we did a couple episodes ago with Austin Trunicka, where he gets into the stories behind all these movies. They're so about as outrageous as the movies themselves.
Yeah, that was a great podcast, by the way. I wasn't able to make it. I told Austin, like, when he came, I was like, I swear, I love you to death. It's just worked out the last 2 times that you were on that I wasn't able to make it. But yeah, it was such a great episode. I love whenever Austin can deliver the goods. And he did it. He gave us a great intro before the movies.
And was there selling copies of his Canon Film Guide book. Maybe the biggest surprise of the night for me was Breakin', because that's a fun movie. That's a decent, fun movie considering it went from idea to release in theaters in 12 weeks. And again, the print was perfect. And the film that I most wanted to see was what Austin said was the sleaziest film Cannon ever made and the sleaziest film Charles Bronson ever made, called Kinjite Forbidden Subjects. And again, finish the sentence for me. It's the movie I most wanted to see. It was last on the bill of a quadruple feature. and this time, it got fogged out.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it did. We were leaving. Well, I mean, I ran the last intermission by myself. Well, Jeff was with me. And when we were leaving, it had just started to roll in. Yeah, it was a shame.
Yeah, I looked and I was starting to get a little sleepy, and I looked up and I'm like, is it my eyes? Is it my windows fogged up? Because I usually sit inside the car. And I realized it was getting foggy, and I waited a little while, and then I realized I'm just listening to a radio drama at this point, and I really wanted to see this movie. So it's the one time I've ever left during a movie I wanted to see at the theater, but I just figured I would cut my losses and go back to the room and try to get some work done or something.
That's when we say it should have just kept raining. Because if it just kept raining like it did during Masters of the Universe, it wouldn't have gotten foggy. As Virgil was out there trying to wait for the thunder and the lightning to come when he says, I have the power on the big screen.
Every now and then, and we've talked about this, there is no separation from the screen and the sky. And when we started getting that heat lightning coming in, I knew it was coming. I knew that laser whip scene was coming at the end of Masters. And that lightning's going to strike when he throws up his sword and yells, I have the power.
I wanted to be the girl that got to rub him down and whatever they...
The oiler?
The oil, the butter, whatever they put on him.
It might have just been Pam. not the woman, but the spray.
If it was spray, I would have been disappointed.
It's just so bonkers. I love it so much. I heard fans say, it seems like you guys are doing a lot more eclectic stuff this year. You're getting away from the horror? Certainly not. I mean, if you look at our calendar, there is no lack of horror when it comes to any given month. But we certainly made a point to say we are going to try some new stuff this year, some genres that we have not been able to tap for whatever reason. but were essential when it comes to the run of the drive-in culture. And being the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the place that pays ode to all of these different eras and genres and things like that, it was only a matter of time until we got to the beach movies. And this was a great opportunity for us, coming off of two great shows, to say, let's try something out on Sunday and see if it sticks. And in pure Mahoning fashion, we tried to add those layers of icing to the fandom, bring much more than just beach blanket bingo on 35 millimeter, which for many people would be enough. But we got maybe the greatest musical act that we've had on the lot. Certainly the one that shocked me the most, going in unexpected. Sunbus, the surf rock jam band of the area, came out and played an hour-long set of surf music that literally split our wigs. It was so good, and I kept turning to Dave Wright and Dave Wirt that night and saying, let's have them back every night. Like, I could listen to this all the time. It was just a perfect groove to get us into things, and a perfect night when it comes to the weather. Sunset was unreal. Listening to surf jams as we get into things. And again, surprises on screen. Mark, why don't you tell them how lucky we were with these intros?
Yeah, well, there aren't that many people left from the Beach Party films. I mean, it was a huge repertory cast in those movies that were like 5 or more films. But, time marches on, and I put out some requests, and we got intros from Donna Lauren, who appears in this film, and she was like the Dr. Pepper girl in the 60s, and she's still really active on social media. And Bobby Shaw Chance, who is now like an acting coach, an acting teacher in LA, she co-starred with Buster Keaton in a lot of these movies, and she didn't have a lot to say in the film. She was mostly there for looks, and she was supposed to be Swedish, and all she would ever say is, yeah, yeah. And they both gave us these really nice intros to really great tone that it set that evening. And we did a promotion where classic cars could get in free, and we got a couple classic cars, but they were really nice classic cars. And the crowd was really everything from little kids to the elderly, which is always nice. And when Sunbus started, this family that had brought their grandmother out, they took her over and sat her down in a folding chair in front of the band, and they all enjoyed it. And I wanted to take a second to say, the way we got Sunbus was kind of insane. Is that we had one band originally that was going to be the band for this show, and that fell through. And then I tried to aim for the stars and get like a really kind of largish band, and they weren't available. And we're sitting in the projection booth. Virgil is at the DJ booth DJing one night. Dave Wright is in a chair near me, and I'm sitting at Jeff's desk. And we're talking out loud about, well, we need to find a band for this show. And I was asking Dave, because he's into the whole New Jersey music scene. He had gotten us Take It Dee Dee for the Rock and Roll High School show. And I get a notification on my phone, and it's our friend Adriana. And she says, do you know of any upcoming shows at the Mahoning this season where my surf rock band could play? And our jaws all dropped and our eyes got big. Like, this is weird, because we're talking about it right now. And I told her, as a matter of fact, yes. And they were so good. Yeah, several of us said, could they just be our house band? Could they play here all the time? And talking to her afterwards, apparently only about 2 of the songs that they played were covers. The rest were originals, and they were indistinguishable from classic surf music.
It was so tight coming from the musician angle. It just, like, again, it took my breath away to be like, how did I not know about these guys, that they were rocking on this level? It's just such a commitment to the genre of that era. And I love anybody that's able to do that and do that right. So we're already talking about maybe trying to bring them back for the Tarantino night, which would play perfectly with the Pulp Fiction night. Mm-hmm. Again, one of those shows where we were fighting to get the word out on this thing. It was like, it's not our fan base. Honestly, at one point we were considering doing bingo, like going to the chamber and trying to do a actual bingo, because we're like, well, this is the age range of this of this fan base, is people who would come out and play bingo. But again, never ever underestimate the power of the love of film and the fandom, because by the time showtime came, those people came. Everybody had an amazing time. any worry that we had about trying to get the word out and pushing it and blah, blah, blah. It's we all had such an amazing time with that one. And man, the secret feature was on point. That's all I'll say. I had a great time with that one too. Then we got into that Tuesday. What did we have that Tuesday?
Lethal Weapon.
Yes. I'm getting too old for this shit. Yeah, the best comment when we announced that was, on a Tuesday, I'm getting too old for this shit. But yeah, again, another Christmas action tied in movie. Dr. Jones brought a great set once again and ended it on a nice Christmas note, bringing us into, again, the theme of it all. That movie plays like gangbusters. It is blockbuster popcorn to the max. Dick Donner classic. Where do you guys fall with Lethal Weapon or that event?
I wasn't there, but it's a good movie.
I wasn't there either, but I do love that movie. But when you get the offer, hey, do you want to have tacos? I was like, yeah, we're going to go out and have tacos. Sorry, Lethal Weapon. Tacos.
Yeah, totally understandable. Which brings us to our community night. So every single year, the Mahoning Drive-In Theater offers a free show for the community. We've done it the last 2 years, maybe 3 years. Last year was a total learning lesson when it came to this community event. What we had done was offered the Goonies for free. We said, you have to reserve your spot. That way we know we're not going to have like 900, 1,000, 1,500 people showing up for the space that we have. So record time, people reserved their spaces. And then when it came time for showtime, about 25% of the people showed up. So a real learning lesson that if you offer something for free, boy, does it become disposable on the day. There's no urgency to actually want to go to this event. So what we tried this year is a different angle. $2 Thursdays. And I don't know about your guys' perspective, but this was a total home run. Great move.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And I got to run the gate.
Yes, that's right.
I went back to the gate.
I'm sure everybody that came through gave you that look like, what? Mama Beth at the gate?
There were definitely some regulars that were like, well, what happened? Why are you out here? And I said, believe it or not, when I got hired, I used to run the gate a lot.
That's right. Yep,
yeah, no, it was such a great turnout. A lot of support. That Salty Sea Circus, oh my gosh, they could come back every week and it would be so much fun. They were so great. They stood out at the gate. They heckled some cars. The son was dressed up like one of the plague doctors. He was out there by the road, I guess, like waving and doing whatever. So everybody was driving by honking their horns. The lady on the stilts, God love her. She limboed underneath the marquee sign, or the overhang up by the ticket booth. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really, really great. Lots of kids, lots of families. It was nice.
I think Samantha, who runs the Salty Sea Circus and a good friend of mine, she made this event happen. You know, it's one of those things that programming, I'm very influenced by, the people around me, the friends around me, and the idea that a close friend of mine had started this pirate group and she started doing community events as a mermaid and dressed up as a pirate. And I started thinking man, this would be such a great thing to bring to the Mahoning, if we could do a pirate night, and then it started coming down the line, putting together the ideas for community night. I know we were considering Jurassic Park again, maybe playing one of Rob's prints as well. But we decided, hey, let's take a swing on pirates. And the reason we did that, Jeff for years has told me about his greatest turnout being first run at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater was for a little movie called Pirates of the Caribbean. He brings it up often where it's just it was nuts. We're turning people away early and blah, blah, blah. So we tried to recreate that magic with this Pirates event. And I'll tell you what, regardless of how you feel about the Pirates franchise, people love this movie so much.
There was a lot of howling when Johnny Depp came up on the screen. There were ladies going wild.
They came to love on that movie and love on it hard. A lot of people came up and thanked us saying this is my favorite movie. A lot of kids again, which is exactly what we wanted for a community night. So that was a home run beyond our expectations. Again, a surprise, great choice with that one. And then we go into where we're at pretty much now, coming off another weekend that I will never, ever forget for the rest of my life. The Wild World of David Lynch 2, lovingly curated, presented by Faye Dorsey, aka Faye Merman, and Tank. We love them so much. They're so connected to the Twin Peaks fan base that she came on board to help bring in the guests, align the dots with the band, which played F.U. Tammy the last two David Lynch events. And it's a love and care for the fan base, again, that really takes this event to the next level. Playing the David Lynch titles is one thing. Really tapping into the fan base is another thing. So favorite memory, I think, of this last weekend would be the great Michael Horse getting up front and improvising with F.U. Tammy on Saturday, playing a little jazz jam with them, kicking it on the microphone. For anybody that's able to dig up that footage, it was like once in a lifetime, and he was incredible. Brought the house down. How about you guys?
I can't say enough about the two of them, Faye and Tank. They're absolutely fantastic. And watching them come in and set up those photo ops, and Tank was out there. He pulled that tractor out of the back lot and repainted it. It looks like a beautiful John Deere, and it's sitting in the back of the stand right now.
Yeah. Tank showed up. Well, Faye reached out and was like, hey, do you still have those corn stalks from Children of the Corn? I was like, we have that backdrop somewhere. So dug it out. And she's like, I want to do a Straight Story photo op. And for those who are familiar with the Straight Story, it's about a guy who pretty much travels across the country practically on a lawnmower, a John Deere. So Tank repainted our red Craftsman mower to look just like a John Deere. And above and beyond when it comes to those two.
Yeah, he came through the gate on Thursday and he was like, is Faye here yet? I said, no, I haven't seen her. And I said, I heard she's repainting the tractor. And he said, I'm repainting the tractor. And I said, well, it's kind of like the same thing, right? And he goes, where is the tractor? I said, oh, you see it? It's all the way back there in the back of the lot. Have fun with that.
Yeah, he showed up really early on Friday. And we're sweating bullets, like painting that thing, hanging up backdrops, this and that. And he goes, ain't this something? My ladies out there whining and dining the Twin Peaks cast, and we're out here sweating our butts off. I said, know your role, pal. Know your role.
They just have a way about them. They're so sweet, and they
really are.
They're
and
the
one
best.
One of those couples that we've seen truly grow with us, When they were coming, they weren't even together when I met Faye. And now they have a beautiful munchkin and their family's growing. And just, again, one of those gift relationships this place has given us. So talking about bringing back, obviously, David Lynch in 2 years. That's a home run every time. But she also presents our Mad Max event, co-presents our Mad Max event. And we might give it a break next year and try an idea that we're kicking around, which I'm super excited about. So stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned.
Ontario Fest. I was able to work the table with Michael Horse on. I was able to work the photo op area a little bit because we did this VIP thing where people paid a little extra. They got in early and they had a photo op on a recreation of the Red Room set with our three guests, which is Michael Horse, Harry Goes, and Dana Ashbrook. And I took some photos for that, which was really fun to see how excited everybody was to meet them and how just cool and funny those guys are. They're like a comedy team. They've known each other for 30 years or so. And Michael was just amazing and funny and sweet and told some really great stories. And Dave Wirt and I, Dave, who was in the last podcast you probably just heard, we're fans of the 1981 Legend of the Lone Ranger film in which Michael Horse played Tonto. Pretty infamously bad and or unsuccessful film, but Dave and I are just thrilled to hearing some stories, some very no holds barred stories from Michael about the making of that film. And it was really an amazing weekend. The weather was perfect. The crowd was great. Just so many excited, happy people to be hanging out and celebrating David Lynch and Twin Peaks and the cast members and all that.
Sell out Saturday night. And I was going through it when I was reviewing the calendar before the pod. Maybe the most sellouts this year. I mean, 2020 is hard to beat, but we've had a lot of sellouts this year. And it just proves that the shots were taken, things like that. People are coming right along with us. And like we always say, infant stages, as people grow along with us and people catch on to what we're doing, people are starting to catch on. So super inspiring, and we'll put a pin in it for our Munsters event, which was our oddities market. We promoted it as a Munster oddities market, and seeing the Munsters up on the big screen was a total delight. The print looked absolutely stunning, like as if it were to come out today. The intro by the great Daniel Roebuck, local hero, local boy, who played Grandpa Munster in the Rob Zombie Munsters, most recent Munsters, gave an amazing produced intro and talked about his love of the Munsters beyond his involvement and how much of a dream come true it was to be able to bring life to that character once again. And I love that. Again, that's been something that's been such a hit this year, is adding that extra layer with bringing people who were involved in the making or the fan base or the genre into things. So thank you, Dan, for giving us that love. And we are going to play River's Edge. We are going to make that happen.
The audience was really cool for that show. You know, it's Monster fans and Universal fans and Munsters fans. And we had a little kid show up in like a stereotypical Elvis costume, like the jumpsuit and the cape. And I looked down and I'm like, there's a little kid in an Elvis costume. And I looked at his father and I'm like, can I take a picture? That's really amazing. And his father was explaining that this kid wears this everywhere. Like wear the Elvis costume, wants to bring a little Elvis to
That's the thing.
And he did the pose, like, you know, it was great. I took some photos, and his father was like, yeah, it used to be 80s stuff. It used to be Back to the Future and Knight Rider, but now it's Elvis. He's moving into the 60s and 70s. And the kid goes 50s and 60s. He corrected his father on that. And we also had this unbelievable, I don't know if you guys saw it, red Chevy Impala roll in just before showtime. And it had like the hydraulics. So like it could get really, really low, or the back could go way up, or the front could go way up. And it was parked with the back way up in the air, so people could just take pictures with the doors open and everything. And that was just crazy and amazing. We did souvenir tickets. I don't know if we've talked about that in the podcast, where first 50 through the gate at certain shows, usually it's the market days, we have these really nice, oversized, glossy souvenir tickets that Chris at Spiral Rewind prints up for us using Andrew Kern's event art, like our Facebook art. And those are just gorgeous. It wasn't a gigantic attendance, but it was a really, really fun kind of family oriented monster movie night.
Yeah. And you know what was great? Again, the concern on all of these vendor shows is like, I want the vendors to do great, you know? And they all did. The focused fan base came out. People came looking for oddities. People came looking for that jewelry. People came looking for that handcraft stuff that we had. And I loaded up, man. I love market days. I do love market days. Brings the weird to us.
And did the oddities come out? Let me tell you.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There were, you know, the thing with oddities is they'll bring out snakes in a jar. They'll bring out, you know, things in a jar. And the best line for me of the night is Vince going, well, I figured out my line. Things in a jar. I do not want to look at something dead in a jar. But yeah, kind of fitting for the Munster night.
The quality of the vendors we've had at these vendor markets are kind of worth the price of admission. I mean, it's not just like 4, it was like 17, 19, something like that at the show on Sunday. And I did a quick, you know, live video as I do at these to show everybody, you know, what they're going to see when they get there to entice people to come out. And if I had more money and less scruples, I probably would have walked home with half a backseat full of stuff too.
And a lot of different things. Like, it's not a lot of repeat vendors either. I mean, I go out and I buy jewelry, Virgil knows. And and my biggest thing right now is earrings. But like, I went around the one time and I bought like 5 different pairs of earrings from 5 different vendors because they were all different. You know what I mean? So it's not all the same thing. And the quality is just so, so good.
Yeah, it's really great. It brings the creativity to the lot. And that was the thought behind it. It's a means to, just like in 2020, when we were trying those vendor events, trying to bring back the vendor events. For a lot of people, it's their lifeblood. And to come out and get in front of our audience, it does wonders, you know? But some of them have become staples. Scary Mary, we love. Face Monster's been back a couple times. Brain Candy, I absolutely love that dude. So that's been great too, is getting to know these people, and naturally, just like everything at the Mahoning, connects the dots for future works. So stay tuned for sure.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
This was a longer podcast for sure, but there's a lot to cover. We literally could have made any one of these weekends a full episode, and maybe one day we will. So thank you so much, Mama Beth, for joining us. People love it when you're on. Thank you, Mark, as always. And I think on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.